Right? Camera, lights, set, and action, right? So welcome all everybody. Welcome. Good morning, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the study group session and organized by the Just Transition Working Group and together with the Adaptation Working Group. I'm Yusuke Sakai. I'm the facilitator of the capacity building team, and we welcome you all to today's topic about youth adaptation, climate resilience in the context of just transition. So it's our pleasure to have this initiative already finally being faced. So let's welcome our change makers, present the agenda of the day, and also the context of why we are doing it. So Charles, yeah, let's go to the next slide. So this study group is our collective effort in preparation to the third dialogue of the Just Transition work program under the UNFCCC that will be happening on the 22nd and 23rd May. Yes. So what we are here for today, we are here to deepen our understanding on adaptation and climate resilience. It's in a study group methodology, so where participants will be doing the presentations and broader discussions, very focused on the actionable solutions that are something that it's very required and very talked by the parties. So next slide. So as you know, to just us to all put us in the same page. Yeah, we can go to the next one, please, Charles. So as you know, to put us on the same context, the Just Transition Work Program is a work stream under the UNFCCC where the just transition topic is being discussed. And this starts on the UAE Dubai decision, and I put a screenshot over there. I guess it's a bit hard to see, but was established that they will create this work stream discussing the elements that are highlighted on the paragraph 2. So we have here just transition, also the just transition of the workforce, energy, socioeconomic aspects, sustainable development, adaptation and climate resiliency, and also the participatory approaches and international cooperation. And the parties agreed that till 2026, next year, will be held two dialogues where countries will share best practices under those 7 elements. And on May this year, on May 22nd, 23rd, the adaptation and climate resiliency will be the topic to be discussed. So we have 3 contexts here. On first one, the parties needs more actionable solutions, evidence-based on those thematics. And us, as YOUNGO, as non-party stakeholders of the UNFCCC, it's our duty also to offer the expertise in the perspective of young people. Remembering that there are 9 constituencies, so there are also youth constituency, there are trade union constituency, there are indigenous people constituency, women and gender, and all of those non-party stakeholders will offer the expertise. So we need and also the dialogue, the third dialogue, is a space where we can do our intervention and also our contribution, influencing the decision making in the global level. So this is why we created the study group. So going to the next slide, we can explain also our roadmap. So this preparation has been happening from March and April. So the capacity building team did a survey also inside the Just Transition Working Group, understanding that there were a demand where people are claiming more open space to talk broadly about the topic, but also in a way that is relatable. It's related, aligned with this policy advocacy work of YOUNGO. And then we've been preparing together with Adaptation Working Group. Charles and Nathan are here, and they suggested to having this guiding Google Doc that will be kickstarted from today. So today is a broader discussion brainstorm. And after, till the third dialogue, the Just Transition Working Group policy team will improve this content of the Google Doc that we're gonna do today, picking up the brains and the ideas that will be discussed here to prepare the orientation document that will be delivered by our representatives on the third dialogue of the Just Transition Work Program. And afterwards, we're going to also share the faces of our dear representatives that were selected. And after the third dialogue, also we're going to have a moment to report back, where our dear representatives will conduct a presentation to it. So this is the roadmap. We are in a second stage. Yeah, so so you know where we are heading to, right? So this effort will be made by our organizing team of the study group session. This is our next slide. So there's me, Charles from Adaptation Working Group, Lerato from Just Transition, Shun from Adaptation, Anirudh from Just Transition, Albin, Margaret, and Margaret. Again, like I guess we had it's Dosia. I guess Dos is the last one. So sorry if I'm mistaken. And let's go to today's agenda. So to today's agenda, we're gonna have 80 minutes of presentation for those people that did the registration, expressing their interest on presenting the study case. And afterwards, we can also, I guess we don't have that much people, so we can have also time to the Q&A session for the presenters. And after, we're going to go to the breakout sessions, where we also prepared 2 guiding questions to make the discussion happening. And we're going to also come back to the plenary again with 20 minutes of collecting the insights and recommendations, from the 2 breakout rooms. And finally, conclude with the presentation of our representatives and the next steps. Okay, so this is the agenda today. I hope that you guys can enjoy a lot of this session. So no more for today, and I talk too much. Let's go to the presenters. So let's go back here. So I open the floor, to anybody that's registered as presenters and they want to make the interventions. But before, I wanted to call to the floor a member from the Just Transition Working Group, and also a member from the Adaptation Working Group to kickstart the conversation, presenting the synergy between adaptation and Just Transition. So, Alejandra, are you ready?
I guess. Hi, everyone.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Yusuk. Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Alejandra Garzón. I'm from Colombia. I'm based in Bogota. I will try to provide or contribute with some inputs about the relation between the just transition and adaptation. My background is more related with mitigation, but I will try to explain some of these things. I will share my screen at this moment. Okay. So, the next ideas that I will share with you are some considerations that during all these years in which the Just Transition Work Program was created and its development, how this consideration of the relation has taken shape or have been framed. So to start, I consider that it's necessary to address the territorial vulnerabilities in the definition of the just transition pathways. We saw in the negotiation in the COP28 how some countries consider that the just transition only should be focusing the mitigation approach, but other countries, and we will see it after some slides, that promote and try to establish that the just transition should include also the reality in the territorial context and how it can affect or how it can affect the development of these action and activities and policies related to the transition. So a systemic and convergent approach is key in this process. And perhaps here we have 2 approach of each one. First, the adaptation seeks to reduce the vulnerability and increase the resilience of the ecosystems and also the population in the local, in the territorial context. But in the other side, the just transition seeks to ensure that the transformation process toward low carbon and climate resilience economies are used, are equitative, or are inclusive. And I consider that intrinsically they are related because these are based on principles of social protection or social justice, participation, trying to leaving no one behind, and in the protection and guarantee of the human rights. Also, here are two inputs generate in the global goal on adaptation at COP28 and also in the Just Transition Work Program at the same COP, where they, in our side, they recognize the importance of participatory, inclusive, and human rights sensitive approaches in line with the principles of the Just Transition pathways, but also encourage countries and parties and all the stakeholders to integrate the adaptation measures with economic and social and environmental co-benefits like the employment, the local employment, or the improve of the livelihoods of people, and all these elements are key in the just transition. And also in the other side, in the just transition working program, during the explanation or the submission of countries about what they consider about the just transition and what covers, multiple developing countries pointed the need to have a more integrated approach that links adaptation, climate justice, and just transition, and focus on human population and ecosystems. I consider that is a fundamental element here, how the ecosystems also play a key role in the process of the adaptation and the resilience. And here, Kenya, on behalf of the AGN, was one of the countries that tried to push this idea into this exercise. And for that reason, you can see like an approximation in the documents of the Just Transition Working Program at that COP related of this issue. And in this case, for the tier dialogue, I consider that is relevant. Also, here are some examples or initial ideas about how the just transition and the other adaptation, that relation could be included in policies, in different political policies, like in the national adaptation plans, in the NAPs. For example, how could be include workers in the agricultural, fishing, or in a small scale mining sector in adaptive economy reconversion processes. Also, how in the NAPs could be include the promotion of green jobs in ecosystem restoration or resilient infrastructure, and also how could be considered the strengthening of the role of women, youth, and ethnic groups in planning, implementation, and monitoring these adaptation measures, and also how the notion of the just transition in the NDCs or in public policies, in their regulatory frameworks, or also in projects related with climate action, can include adaptation measures such as social protection for workers that are affected by extreme events. Also, how the labor reconversion to climate resilient sector is considered, for example, in sustainable agriculture or in care economies, popular economies, and also how the community participation could be included in decisions on MBS. So these are some approximation. And to end, because I don't want to spend some more time, perhaps here I include two reflections. One related how the need to link adaptation in local just transition pathways for research or reaching better climate resilience. It should include also the strengthening of climate environmental and territorial governance, and also of the permanent consideration in the development of public policy regarding the transition of the multiple condition of vulnerability of child and youth to climate change to aspect at their age, ethnicity, gender, and social status. We can work on that in the next explanation of the presentation of the case studies, and also try to reflect about it in the discussion that we'll have. So I will finish here, and in other moment I will present the case study that I prepared.
Thank you so much for the kickstarting. Thank you so much for the organizing the slides also. Like it was really really nice. I also like I wanted to yeah. First of all, we have like I guess we can also open since we have less people than expected. So I guess we have more quality time. So I guess I wanted to also first of all open the floor for questions and some questions that may arrive or curiosities that you want to ask for Alejandra. Remembering that there are no wrong questions here, and we are also always here to learn from each other. And this is a space where we wanted to, you know, also push for peer-to-peer learning. So yeah, you have any comments, experience based on that, you know, presentation from your local context? This is the space for to do so. So like, yeah, anyone wants to comment upon, please, you know, like open the mic, raise hands, and I will give the floor to you. No? Yeah, please, Saikat, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Alexandra, for the amazing presentation. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly, Saikat.
Yeah, perfect. Just wanted to know, as you spoke about the resilience, and you also spoke about the linkage between adaptation and this transition work program. Just wondering, you spoke about the map, like adaptation, adaptation uh, program. What about this GGA, like the global goal of adaptation? Are those different from like different documentations and the bands, or we are just focusing towards the map, not to the GGA?
Okay, I only try to show you some of the ways as the relation could be included, but taking into consideration that each one have a different role or a different approach, how to the adaptation is managed. I guess the global goal uh, adaptation is more related with the commitment of countries and all parties in establish a goal and measures to increase the capacity of, regarding the adaptation and the reduce of the vulnerabilities, and the NAPS like the tool to implement it or to guide how countries will continue that process. So perhaps on that way I highlight some elements, but perhaps the adaptation working group could explain more specifically how are they connected or they are related in different ways.
Okay, got it. Exactly. So those are the examples that we saw right now. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Alexandra.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Saikat, actually, for breaking the ice. It's always like it's always good to have someone to take the initiative to do so. And since the question was also about, you know, GGA and NAP, and I guess we have also Nathan from the Adaptation Working Group. So I guess he can also break down for us those concepts and stuff. So yeah, Nathan, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you. Just to answer Saikat's question, yeah, I think, you know, countries are designing their apps, and of course they take into account, let's say, the 3 goals in the GGA. I think we can also present it just to explain what the goals are, and then for each goal, actually countries also agree to develop, let's say, more a sectoral based framework. that was agreed at COP28. So it is sort of expect that countries developed, let's say, adaptation, that's mainstream, in each sector in the future NAPS process.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nathan. So I guess you can also like bring us your presentation if you. Yeah.
Yes, I'll just, yeah, give me a moment. I will just look at if I can share my screen.
For sure.
I don't know, yeah, if other adaptation working group members also have their presentations, you can also share. I think this one I just present more on personal behalf as also just quickly scramble some things and try to also explain how adaptations relate to just transition. And to be honest, it was also, it's not necessarily easy at the first point for me to understand what it means, but I already had a look at some of the submissions from countries and organizations yesterday, so just to get a bit of sense of what they prioritize. And of course, this is not necessarily what the adaptation working group prioritize, but I think it's really something that we can try to find synergies with, countries and also stakeholders during the dialogue in Panama. So basically, yeah, this presentation is just an analysis of 3 selected submissions, which I find particularly interesting. And you see that the first one is from Research Institute from London School of Economics. And then the second one is from least developed countries. And the third one is FAO. And with CGIAR is another agricultural research institute. And to be honest, today just want to highlight, let's say, maybe just to expand on what the global goal on adaptation is. And it was established, as part of Paris Agreement, Article 7.1. And the key goals is to, improve the adaptive capacity of peoples and ecosystem, and also to enhance their resilience also. And last but not least, to reduce the vulnerability of people exposing to different kinds of climate hazards. And I think when it comes to the highlight of a global goal on adaptation this year, apart from the, just transition dialogue and for the global goal on adaptation itself, is that they're going to agree on adaptation indicators to measure, countries' adaptation progress, and in the end, sort of we sort of understand, what is our collective progress on implementing adaptation solutions at a global level. So basically, I think it's really important to think about, let's say, just transition also in a sectoral point of view, because if you really think about how adaptation is framed, under the UNFCCC right now, after COP28, they developed this framework called the UAE Framework for Global Climate Resilience, and basically you see that there are different considerations, and of course that's some part of it is related to just transition, focusing on the well-being of people, protection of livelihoods and economies. And I think also Maria also mentioned some of the examples of let's say including some actions of ecosystem restoration in which is done by local communities. And I think we need to understand what kind of support, including finance, that that can be channeled to target these, let's say, local communities to take action. And on the right hand side, you see different thematic targets or sectors prioritized in this framework, and just want to really highlight one of them. And actually, maybe go to the previous slide. So this one is basically the outcome of COP28, and basically one of the target is poverty eradication and livelihoods, in particular by promoting the use of what they call the adaptive social protection measures for all. And I think it's really interesting because some countries, some organizations, they sort of highlight this aspect again, and maybe when it comes to social protection measures, this is one of the things that when you talk about adaptation and under just transition is something to be considered. So I think the first one I think I already mentioned is that we need to have a sectoral view of adaptation, and just transition is not. And okay, so these words are basically, yeah, it's basically synthesized from the quotes that I read from submissions. And it's not just about shifting away from carbon-intensive systems. So it goes beyond the energy system also to think about, let's say, other sectors. So for example, the least developed countries, they highlight, it's important to ensure synergies with the 11 targets set under the UAE framework for global climate resilience. So the 7th thematic target, and also there's 4 targets that's related to the iterative adaptation cycle, but that's not so important. I think what we focus here is also on the sectoral view. So yeah, it's really important that, when it comes to specific, things related to just transition, hopefully that is, let's say, reflected, in the adaptation indicators, so that, we understand how to monitor the progress. And it's particularly important this year, simply because at COP30, they will agree on these indicators, how these indicators should look like. And yeah, I think it's important for us to, let's say, look further in the future, even after the dialogue, because so experts have been mapping out and filtering the indicators, and the latest set of indicators for each target will be released on 20th of May. So basically we can have a look at these indicators to see, okay, does it actually also reflect, our progress on, achieving just transition across, each of the thematic targets. I think something we can look and analyze in the future, and we hope that the adaptation working group will also take this into, the aspects of just transition into account. I saw some submissions, they basically said that, okay, we have a just transition work program, but the most critical thing is how do you actually, in the end, ultimately mainstream that to, let's say, the global goal on adaptation, and of course, in the national adaptation plan. And the second one is, yeah, I think maybe we can have a look at, let's say, social protection, which is key for just transition and climate adaptation, as mentioned by some submissions. And social protection can be a critical enabler for just and inclusive climate adaptation, especially considered that I think maybe current social protection schemes are not necessarily that, flexible. Maybe there isn't any strategies when it comes to, okay, what if we implement a national adaptation plan, and then, you require different communities to adopt, new practice, like how, let's say, when they face, I don't know, certain things that disrupt their livelihood, how can you actually expand the access to social protection to these vulnerable groups? And I think there are also some brief mention of how, let's say, finance can be delivered to this, but I think we can look further into it. I don't think we have so many information at the moment, but I think if the just transition working will have some knowledge on transition finance, I don't know, maybe just have a look at what countries talk about finance during the dialogue. I think that's quite interesting. And yeah, last but not least, I think, consideration of women, like children and youth, is important. And also the submissions also highlight, for example, small to medium enterprise, informal workers, and also small scale producers. And it's really important that, yeah, they are also taken into account, especially, for example, if you think about, let's say, the agriculture sector, you have many, let's say, small scale producers. And I think usually nowadays some of the big, let's say, the adaptation policies, especially from the private sector, they don't give so much consideration to smaller business operating in the informal sector. So that's something to think about, like how to have these better, let's say, adaptation policies that, ensure that, let's say, they are more, together they create more resilient, let's say, supply chain. I think supply chain is one of the main consideration in the agricultural target, for example. And yeah, I think considering if there's some, let's say, previous agreements, or maybe yeah, of related just transition that focus on SME and individual workers, I think it's good time to think about how how they are implemented in adaptation. Because in the past, when we talk about workers, maybe we're talking about, let's say, transition away from fossil fuels, let's say in some, coal, I don't know, in the past there's coal mining, let's say, areas, and then, the workers get left out, but, they need to create like different kinds of green jobs so that they can, have have a, alternative livelihood and pathway for them um to get a good life. And yeah, I think these are the three main insights that we have. But yeah, this is just analysis of some submissions, and yeah, look forward to see how yeah, what other ideas that are related to adaptation in the context of just transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Amazing, amazing, amazing presentation. And I also see that Rosny also like Senna. Yeah, like a heart mark. This is also great. Like, yeah, guys, yeah, it's interactive way. Yeah, when we cannot see faces. But yes, any comments, questions, curiosities that you wanna pick from? Oops, sorry, from Nathan's brain. That's the moment. Or if you have something to add, or even opposing opinions, this is also welcome here. Yes, Patience, go on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for all the presentations and all. I wanted to add on what Nathan was saying on the synergies between the just transition and adaptation. I'd say it's more like a shift from what was being used to what was used to be done by people in relation to adapting to climate change. More like saying, for example, in the agriculture sector, people were used to say, here in the global south, they'll be relying on the rains to get agricultural outputs. But then we are saying just transition is coming in to say adapt to the recent things that are happening, to the recent climate changes that are happening. So it's more like a shift from what we were used to do into something that is more sustainable, that is more resilient, and that is more adaptive to what is happening in the climate, in the area. There's people, or maybe let me say, in the parties areas. Well, for myself, coming in from Zimbabwe, we'll be saying it's a shift. We are transitioning from relying in rainfall to say we are now shifting into irrigation, or we are now shifting into using bore water to sustain our agricultural output. So it's more like we are transitioning. So it's just transition, adapting to what is happening in the climate.
Thank you so much. So you're sharing the reality that you see in Zimbabwe of the transitioning of this irrigation system in agriculture. That's right, Patience. That's good. And also like this is also very welcome, like to bringing what's your reality on your region, what is happening. So yeah, this is a nice thing to do. Also come here. Lerato, yes, please go on.
Hi, it's actually a mistake. I was trying to react to Patience's statement, but instead I raised my hand. My apologies.
Okay, perfectly. But yeah, if you have any comments, you can also yeah, please bring it. And also, yeah. So we have I wanted to ask, because I lost the list of the people that made a presentation. But if you have any those people that register as presenters here today, if there's any, please raise your hands so we can pass the floor to you next. And yeah, I mean,
Okay, if I may, because there's this question in my head, I just don't know where to insert it.
Let's go.
Because yeah, from what Nathan said, I can see how the discussions on adaptations came to include just transition aspects over time. So we evolved from just thinking about adaptations as a broad theme to thinking on the effects that the climate change has on the work and the effects that the policies parties make in their countries have on the work. But I keep thinking what happened on the other way around, like how just transition came to include adaptation topics on your side, if that even happened.
Perfect. So, Charles, this was a question for like broadly, right, to the conversation.
Yeah.
Great. That's fantastic. And I would say, like, guys, like, I'm gonna take out the moderation since I guess we're gonna have like more organic discussion. So yeah, Carmen, please go on, jump in.
Yeah, no, I do understand that question very well because that was a question I also had. So as I understood as I understand just transition within the UNFCCC, it is more so like a principle that should be brought into all the other negotiation tracks and not everything brought into the just transition discussion. That's how we are trying to establish it within the UNFCCC. So not to, for example, with finance, not to bring all the finance discussions into just transition, but bring the just transition principles into the finance discussions. And I think that is also how we should approach it with adaptation. So yeah. But if you guys have any other understanding of it, please just like let me know or raise your hand, respond.
Yeah, that is very interesting because just transition seems to be a very intersectional topic by nature. But I wonder if there is like, if just transition always happens in other topics, is there any topic that is like intrinsic to just transition, you know? Or all things related to just transition has to correlate with other topics in the UNFCCC?
So I
can also just offer my understanding of it, but in terms of UNFCCC, I think it's like all the matters relating to including like non-party stakeholders, social dialogue, but then also like workers and training programs. That is very much like just within just transition because there's no a separate negotiation track. But then for all the others, yeah, I think it's more so the approach that I previously explained. But I don't know if Susanna is here.
Yeah, Susanna is.
Or maybe some of our policy persons can also like comment on it if they have like a different understanding.
I guess I can, Charles. So your question is more about like so inside the UNFCCC, what the Just Transition Working Group is doing. Is that your question?
More or less, I'm thinking about just transition or on a more like broad level, like very metaphoric, like what is just transition? And because in my understanding, it seems like just transition always happens in correlations with other topics, and that is very interesting to me. Like in discussions about adaptations, we tend to see adaptations as a topic on itself, and sometimes adaptations correlate with other topics. But it was very interesting to me to read about just transition because just transitions always seems to like correlate with finance or correlate with technology, And I just wondering how it is to discuss this topic, and if it is even possible to discuss just transition by itself,
Right. So,
you know?
okay, okay. Interesting. True, because when we talk about in mitigation, we have specific actions, and we can clearly see it, right? Like how we can offset, how we can achieve carbon neutral. Those are mitigation stuff. When it comes to adaptation, we talk about reforestation, we talk about soil, we talk about water, we talk about so how we can also like vulnerable communities, how we can protect them. But when it comes to just transition, it's like it's so transversal. Like, but what a just transition thing that it's discussed that is different from the other groups. Kind of this is the thing, right? So yeah, interesting. And we have also Saikat here. So yeah, Saikat, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, since when I've been working on the ground, so I understood that it's not just transition. Every thematic always connect with each other. That is the reason we have tracks, negotiation tracks, right? And when we see about just transition, you see it as an cause and effect. So what is the cause that we need a transition? The cause that we have the other like mitigation, adaptation. We have the cause of the big cause, which is temperature and whatever, like all the negotiations going on into Paris agreements, whatever the goals we have, right? So when we will have the transition, of course there will be a response, right? So there will be some kind of cause. So in theory, when we have those kind of tracks with different kind of policies changes, right? But this policy changes always neglects a certain kind of communities, right? Maybe indigenous people, for example, or maybe people who are working in the mines, or maybe people who are actually like trying to justify the transition. So just transition work program and just transition like in overall track is been held for any transition for any tracks have to be in a justified way, right? Justified in manner. If we are transitioning, then the capacity building should be done. The skill development, which is skill transfer, should be done. If we are talking about the global level, it's not about global, it's all about global south and global north, right? So this global south, when there is a transition, so there will be a transfer of money from global north to global south. So those are actually small parts which actually comes together, and that is the reason the transition is a big one. Because transition is happening, but right now we have to also think about humans, socio-economic aspect, not just the economic aspect. And that is the reason we have tracks like this, and every track, yeah, trust me, every track is connecting with each other. Human resource also, human resilience, climate science, everything comes under adaptation as well as in just transition as well. Energy comes under adaptation and as well as just transition. So everything connects together. But yeah, nice question, by the way. This is what I got to know, like since I'm working, and we have fantastic people as well here. If they want to add on, please.
Sure. Thank you so much. Saikat, just check your microphone because we sometimes we can hear you, sometimes we cannot hear you. So if you can just do that, that would be amazing. We are for sure. So Saikat, I just have wanted to understand your point. So in your view, just transition working group is a space where to check the equity elements that are already emphasized in other spaces, but most of the time, when you do policy making, you agree on that the importance of certain elements, but when you're elaborating for policies, sometimes we neglect. So it is a space where we want to check that those things are echoed properly.
Yeah. So can you hear me now? Like, is it audible?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Perfect.
like night and day, it's way better now.
Yeah. Sorry. My mic was out of the sync. So yeah, the most important part that I say is each and every track is correlated to each other. It's not just about just transition. It's not just about energy. Every track is correlated, right? So when we have policies are made in four different parts. Is we always have the like phase of suggestions. When we collect the suggestions from our the stakeholders, then we design it, then we implement it, then we go for resolution. Like what exactly we got the solution from it, right? It's the four stages. But in these four stages, we always neglect the transfer, like like one economy to other economies is being transferred. And when we are talking about negotiations and tracks and everything, it's always collect all the you can say stakeholders always, but it takes time to move from one part A to part B. Correct? For moving from a part A to part B, it should be justified in every manner. Correct? If we are talking about the Paris Agreement, we have our long-term goals, short-term goals as well. Every nation has their long-term and short-term goals. Correct? We also have like SDG 2030 goals, which has to be followed. So everything compiles together. In those compilations, we always have to make sure that the transfer should be in socio-economic manner, not just economic aspect. Correct? So when we talk about just transition actually makes sure that adaptation, finance, and everything, every track has to be gone through a proper channel where human capitalism, resilience, and also the transition to be in smooth and effective way for many economies and low economics, or many you can say indigenous people we have, right? Many sector of economy it have, so it makes sure that no one should leave left behind. So it's a like response measure basically. Correct? So those are the facts that comes together, and we work. That's it. Every track literally connects with each other.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, perfect. That's wonderful. And I guess, oh, there's Nicholas. Okay, let me just, yeah, Nicholas. Before you go, I wanted also like to share a thing. So I guess adding on it, I can bring a bit of the history, very briefly, of the just transition. So the just transition, it starts on a labor force movement in the 80s and 90s in the US, but very focused on the just transition of the workforce, right? So the conversation starts from there. How those workers that is under that was working on a fossil fuel industries, with, and when we shut down an industry, what we're gonna do with those workers? Is we have to put, is it fair to put all the costs on them? So they have to find a new job. They have to educate themselves. They have to reskill themselves to go to follow the market of the green economy. So the conversation starts from there. So here we can see the clear kind of division of the subject that is under the just transition. However, through the times, civil society take this concept of the just transition that was brought by the workforce and trade unions, and starts to bring element, signifying the just element of it, bring in the climate justice claims, bring in the vulnerability communities, what we're going to do with them, and also this principle that I guess Saikat very precisely brought about leaving no one behind. That is also the motto of the Agenda 2030. That's why, this is from personal view, I feel that how importance of the SDGs and climate are fundamental to talk about the just transition. But the Saikat also talks about the very interesting this correlation about just transition work program be a space to make sure the equity aspect of it. This is interesting because sometimes it's considered as important, but it's left behind when the policy making is being done. So I remember the finance, and when we were talking about the finance issue, and there's a report by I forgot the source, the report source, but it was about how, for example, when you talk about debts, quitting debts, and the vicious cycle of debts for the least developed countries, it's interesting how we see like there's an argumentation, just as can be used to enhance the importance of the debt system reviewing, because when we have a least developed countries that already have debts, and they suffer from the climate the impacts, they didn't even create it, and we have to increase our debts. Let's take it as the least developed countries, increase our debts to respond to the adaptation measures. And debts is always a thing that if we do a debts now for someone in the future to pay, that means that we are putting burden upon the young people of this country, the future young people, to pay for the things. And so is it fair for the young people of the future to pay the debts, and also the new debts related to the climate area? So here we see the implication of the intergenerational equity principle. on the practical reality. So this is also an interesting way to like enhance, how using the just transition principle, using just transition argument to enhance, to make it bolder why we need to review the finance the finance area. And other thing that I guess it's very also like the just transition aspect. It's the KCI that we have in the UNFCCC. The KCI look for the negative and positive externality of mitigation efforts. So in an easier word, let's say Europe now it's making all the effort for energy transitioning. Energy transitioning also relates to we need more raw materials to make solar panels, to make electric cars, to make digitalization. But where those elements come from some Latin American countries or African countries. And when those minings happens and increase the demands for the natural resources, this also can increase in some regions tensions for mineral rich territories, as we see on the Democratic Republic of Congo, right? Those tensions are rising for mining rich areas. So we see that mitigation efforts, electric transformation of Europe, cause an external negative externalities in other countries. How we can mitigate, how we can minor those negative externalities, and how we can maximize the positive. This is a work that the Katowice Committee on Impact Assessment, namely KCI, does under the UNFCCC that relates to the just transition. I guess now we can see the division, for example, in this example, the division about what the mitigation do in a just transition, in a UNFCCC, and what the just transition does in the UNFCCC, the division. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And Nicholas, I know that you raised hands, but you took it up. I guess you're more than welcome to talk. Please don't give up on your hand raise. And after we have Nathan.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add my 2 cents on the topic. If it aligns and follows essentially from what Karaman already said and what you, Yusuke, I believe, were kind of pointing towards, in the sense that I also think that climate change mitigation, for example, on its own is a very clear concept, is a clear end goal in itself, whereas just transition, more than being an end result, I see as more of a principle that must be integrated in all the other topics that are related to society's climate responses. So, for example, when we think about the end result of moving to renewable energy use and reducing emissions, just transition is then a concept that needs to be integrated within that to ensure that it's done with fairness to everyone globally. And then similarly, when we think about climate resilience, let's say ensuring that cities everywhere are prepared for extreme climate events, we again just need to integrate just transition principles within that so it's done with fairness to everyone globally. So I do see it kind of as more of an integrated principle within all society's climate responses, more than an end result in itself, which, for example, climate change mitigation is again. And that's kind of, yeah, basically the way I see this.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nathan. We're gonna pass the floor to you, and after we have also Alejandra also prepare another signing presentation for us. So we're gonna jump on it. So yeah, but yeah, please, Nathan, go on.
Yeah, thank you. And I also would like to share my screen briefly just to talk about, let's say, some of the emerging things related to adaptation and how just transitions should be considered, because so basically at COP28 and also COP29, they start to talk about the concept of transformational adaptation. And we are still, let's say, discussing on the terminologies and the definitions, and countries still need to agree on it. But what's going to happen at SB62 is that countries are going to discuss this paper about transformational adaptation report published by the Secretariat. And basically what happens is that you also see just transition being mentioned in different places. For example, yeah, just share understanding of principles behind transformational adaptation, such as equity and justice is key to success, ensuring just transition where benefits are distributed fairly. And yeah, I think so. Basically, from the adaptation working group, we're still, let's say, discussing what we think about it, but it's also like yeah, you see how different types of adaptation. Let's say if you really think about, let's say I think here are some of the example, like for incremental adaptation, for example, I don't know, building irrigations. This is a report from the secretariat, so we don't know like what exactly it means, but we see that let's say when it comes to the framing of adaptation, if we decide to move towards a more, let's say, transformative or transformational adaptation, you see that there are definitely much more considerations. And talking about, let's say, okay, let's say, in the past, let's think of from the agricultural sector, let's say, let's say in a country, in the past they farm a crop which is usually highly vulnerable to pests, and then because of climate change worsening, this crop is going to be very easily vulnerable. And what are the options? Can we actually shift to other kinds of land uses? What kind of strategies are there? And I think it's really important to also consider, let's say, if you are really making a big change, let's say within a sector, and some of the solutions could be considered transformational adaptation, but it's really important to think about what are the implications for communities. I think the LDCs precisely mentioned that in their submissions, saying that, okay, we need to discuss, how capacity building is done if we want to promote these kinds of approaches. And I think, I think this report, we're still at the very beginning of analyzing it, but if you're interested in it, feel free to also, maybe just have a look in the Just Transition dialogue, whether they actually mention this. But at the same time, you have, let's say, countries likely actively blocking the progress, like they don't want transformational adaptation. Especially, maybe one argument from developing country is that, if transformational adaptation is recognized, then you don't have a lot of finance delivering into, let's say, some incremental adaptation options. For example, let's say building roads, in a rural area nowadays is considered adaptation finance, which I think we can think about whether that's a good option or not, like how it's calculated. And so it's really interesting, like how these kind of terminology, the recognition of these terminology, the recognition of adaptation solutions, different kinds of adaptation solutions are debated under the current system, because it's going to affect how the finance is channeling to implement these different approaches of incremental adaptation solutions and transformational adaptation solutions. Yusuke, you're muted.
Thank you so much. I thought I was never gonna forget about unmuting myself. Nathan, could you give us an example of what is incremental adaptation, and what is a transformational adaptation?
Yeah, so we are analyzing from this report. And also we realized that back at COP29, we didn't have a good position on this. We entered the negotiation room and we realized, okay, they're actually talking about this. So the report that I just showed you, they have already some let's say examples on what is transformative and what is less transformative. And I think it's still, I mean, it's a concept that is in academia, but we can also discuss whether that's actually useful. Maybe in the end, at SB62, countries reject the concept because maybe it doesn't necessarily, it's not that transformative. So let's say think about I think this one is adaptation options in the health sector. And you think about, let's say, I think this one is about health. Let's say, I guess it's about heat stress or something like this. So you can have early warning system, and then in the media, they report that, okay, today is very hot, and then be aware. Then this is, I would say, it's a less transformative adaptation, because it's just, I mean, it informs people, which is really important, to take different kind of precautions when you let's say there's extreme heat, and then you make a public announcement. I mean, that's an adaptation solution, but that's a very incremental one. But if you're talking about more transformative one, to think about, let's say let's say, healthcare systems are accessible to people, vulnerable groups facing, let's say, facing heat stress, or maybe even redesign how the housing should be like, in a certain district, because sometimes, for example, in Hong Kong, you have places where you walk, it's just 50 degrees because it's all concrete. The whole city is concrete. And if you let's say, change how the city is planned, how it's designed, then it's likely more a transformative adaptation than, just making a public announcement saying that today is very hot and there is no other solutions that we can take care of. So I hope this is one of the examples. And yeah, there are some other examples which is when we look at, I think it's also quite I don't know what we think about it, but yeah, I think the adaptation working group also can look for more information to provide a bit more clarity on transformational adaptation. But most importantly is about when we pursue these options, like let's say, city planning, how can we ensure that, let's say, different, let's say, vulnerable groups are taken into account to integrate the principle.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nathan. And for the people that are listening here, just wanted to make a check. Are you guys still alive? Put a thumbs up for me. Like, you guys are still following the conversation. Yes. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Thank you so much, Lodi. Thank you so much. Yeah. Nice. Good. Yeah. Okay, guys. That's amazing. Thank you so much for the reacts. Okay. We go to Maria, Alejandra, and after we're going to go to the breakout rooms. Okay. So, Alejandra, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Yusuk. I prepared also, following the one-page document that you sent, a case study in my context. I will try to explain it fast. So it's the case of one of the departments of Colombia is El Cesar. This is located in the northeast side of the country and limit with Venezuela. El Cesar represents the 38% of the national mining production, and its main distribution or destination is the international trade. The Colombian economy depends highly of the trade of carbon and also the hydrocarbons, and also the territories, and particularly this, El Cesar, have a high dependence of territorial fiscal revenues of these industries. But there is a paradox related with is one of the departments with the least territorial development. Nearly of the 56% of people live in monetary poverty, have a really complex situation of the cross-border migration, and also regarding the climate issues is ranked #1 in climate change threat in the country, and also have the third position in the adaptive capacity. So there is a high vulnerability in food security, in air quality, in biodiversity loss, and in the quality and availability of the water resources. Also, the climate change increase some phenomenon that in Colombia generate a high impact, like El Niño and La Niña phenomenon. This phenomenon increase the local vulnerability because generates that long period of drought, and also intensified precipitations affect communities, crops, and all kind and the ecosystems. And also in that region, we have key ecosystems that help us to conserve the water, or also to provide food for people, and ecosystems that are really threat in global scenarios. So people here have a high in livelihood dependence of these ecosystems. And regarding youth, trying to connect adaptation, just transition and youth in this region have really critical rates. For example, is an area with low schooling rates, also a high desertion rate. There are limited access to superior education. Also, the opportunities to employ young people are limited. And the productivity of this population is restricted because they don't have the capacities and the abilities to get involved in other kind of jobs. So this scenario is complex even more because of the high vulnerability due to the armed conflict in the region. And a specific situation that complex even more. This scenario happened in 2020 when one of the companies, the biggest companies, multinational company that manage the mines in this region, decide to early resignation and return the mine titles to the government, and near of 6,000 people lose direct jobs, and also other 24,000 people lose their jobs. So this present a new scenario in the Colombian context because of the unplanned mine closure that increase some impacts, like or give us some lessons, really relevant lessons in this process, or in this just transition logic that let us improve, or trying to improve in other sectors, issues like lack of workforce transition strategies, also lack of clarity about the post-exploitation economies and the production activities or alternatives for local communities. Also, the lack of plans to monitor and manage the post-closure environment impacts that remains in the project area of influence. Also, we don't have at that moment the definition of actions to prevent and manage the environmental liabilities, and the linkage of the illegal armed actors in different issues, but perhaps here in the union repression play a really complex role. And how one of the main important lesson was the exclusion of space for consultation and decision making with companies and in the communities regarding this close process of women and youth population. So this scenario teaches us the need to rethink the adaptation of a high vulnerable territory due to the environmental deterioration generated in the context of the climate crisis and how it emerged. And here to finish are some examples of the actions that has been taken during the years, or across the years, like the community-based climate monitoring, trying to link or articulate the local communities in the with the citizen science, and how it can work as a local climate change adaptation measure. Also, how the social appropriation knowledge and the integration of the local knowledge could help to understand how the impacts of the climate change and the activities that need to transit or to improve or change or transform it better to other type of economic activities are generating impacts in the territory. And also this was an opportunity to strengthen intergenerational convergence because of the involvement of the young people in the process of the monitoring. Also, we have the inclusion of new jobs in this specific department in Colombia regarding to the ecosystem restoration and the conservation of these places that before were used to the exploitation of carbon. And also how the recuperation of soils and the conservation of the water reserves could represent an opportunity for young people in this region. And finally, we also have some initiatives not scalable and not necessarily completely financed, but that represent pilots or are efforts who involves the international cooperation, the governmental institution, and the social society to develop nature-based solutions, trying to recover degraded ecosystems, also to promote regeneratives, productive alternatives, and also rescue the knowledge and the food security and the guarantee of the food for local people, and also how other key actors like the indigenous people, the Afro-Colombian people, and the Peasant people could contribute, and how their knowledge could be integrated into the development of public policies. So this is the example that I prepare, and I expect that help with other elements to the discussion that we are taking.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. It's so nice. Yeah, thank you so much, Alejandra. Like, in personally speaking, I guess this is something that we miss a lot in, I guess, in our YOUNGO space, to have like local level practical examples where we can relate, you know, all this more theoretical, not theoretical, but abstract discussion that is also important in a global level, but how we can see it on a local level happening. So like, thank you so much for bringing. And I guess, you know, today's our word for slide preparation go to Nathan Lee and Maria Alejandra for sure. You guys was the highlight of this event. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, any comments before I do my comments? Any comments, question, curiosity that we, Nathan? Yeah, please.
Yes, Alejandro, thank you for the presentation. I think it's quite interesting to have the example of the community-based climate monitoring, because I mean, in national adaptation plans, so I think at the start I talked about, let's say, the 11 thematic targets, not thematic, 11 targets of the UAE global climate for global framework for climate resilience. Always hard to read it. So basically, there's one target is about implementation, and then there's another target about monitor, evaluation, and learning. And I think, you know, for adaptation, it's really important that we talk about, let's say, support that's go to monitor, evaluation, and learning, and that's how we measure, let's say, you know, adaptation progress with the indicators, and also how stakeholders can take ownership of, you know, like local communities can take ownership of, let's say, measuring progress, and also have their, let's say, you know, locally led adaptation projects. And and for the adaptation working group, I think in the past people already have been mentioning, let's say, emphasizing more on monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And yeah, it would be interesting to see if there are certain things that appear in just transition dialogue, if any parties or non-party stakeholders actually mention this. So I think one of the preliminary, position of the adaptation working group is that, well, I just need to find it. So it's also about monitoring, evaluation, learning, and youth is just not just a vulnerable group, right? It's also, can take the lead, in doing these kind of projects. And it was really great also to deliver that in the Copenhagen Climate Ministerial to people. And I think we can further look into how, let's say, we can strengthen this advocacy.
That's perfect. That's perfect intervention. And like so I wanted to comment upon, like, it's very interesting how Alejandra brings the connection. First of all, how we can see the connection about just transition and adaptation on your presentation, in a way of the just transition happens from this loss of the jobs from the mining sector, and how this create the loss of jobs, what we're gonna do with those workers, and the possibilities, maybe a possibilities to this transitioning. We can do it through the economic diversification, and on the economic diversification focus on nature-based solution, food security, regenerative production. All those are the things that we can do, and the country level can do to diversify the economies, to go out from the fossil fuel more like into an adaptation effort related economies, and then we can create jobs over here. So we see the adaptation and just transition correlation here that are also relatable, those new economic sectors to the climate resiliency. So then what the public authorities of Colombia can do is to support this all this framework that enhance this structure. And in the international cooperation level, what we can do is, based on that example, is like also how other countries, developed countries, can support by finance, or how we can do support by capacity building, training, and etc. And how they can structure this international cooperation support, allowing those national public policies and allowing those people. And I guess relating to what Nathan is saying, if we can identify better the active role of young people on, and we can if we can capture more examples, practical examples of young people, for example, in this series, if we can have the example of young people working in food security, working in regenerative production alternatives in Colombia, and how we can support those young people in the front line and do this construction from the local level to the global level. If we can have this picture, I guess more the challenge of us is to make this relation happen. The things are already happening in the world, I guess, but now how we can connect the dots and how we can present it to the climate negotiators, like this is the dots, that is the correlation of the thing, how we can go from just on the abstract, like to the local level on adaptation. I guess then we can have maybe more thing. And Maria, also, like you're putting on the chat, you can also open the mic, and we have just 1 minute left to us to fit on the schedule of today. But if you want to comment upon what
okay. No, I only want to add that I agree with you, and I consider that the economic diversification depends on the vocation of the territory. Issue that we saw in the negotiation is that some countries, for example, that don't have relevant areas of forest or huge biodiversity, don't consider necessarily that the diversification include all these elements. So for that reason, when I study the topics related with the land use planning, the notion of the vocational land use is key, and in this case, in the definition of the just transition pathway of each country or of each territory, I believe that is a key element to guarantee the link between the just transition and the adaptation. Nothing else.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, guys. It's been already 1 hour and a half. So 1 hour, no, just 1 hour, I guess. 1 hour and a half already. So we're gonna have one more 30 minutes of discussion, and then we're gonna close today's day. But before, I wanted to really invite you to take a deep breath, together, just to, I will invite you to just close your eyes, all everyone that is present here, just and inhale all together. 3 seconds inhale, 6 seconds to exhale. And yeah, we can do it like a couple of times and then we get, yeah. So inhale, 3 seconds. Inhale. And exhale. You can also move your shoulders a bit, move your neck a bit, just to exercise a bit. Great. All right, let's go. Let's finish this session. All right, survive. Let's survive. Stay with us. We have some people, I guess. And now I really wanted to actually make a question for you, since we have less people today here. Maybe I wanted to also let's make a voting together in a very YOUNGO style. If we want to do a breakout rooms, or if we want to do the discussion in one group, okay. But before we do take this decision, I really wanted to show you guys what are the key guiding questions that we prepare for you now. If we follow the breakout rooms, the group one will answer the question, how international cooperation facilitate just transition pathway in the context of adaptation? And what are the main challenges and opportunities to ensure both climate resilience and social equity? Those are the questions of the group one. And the group two will be talking, how can finance, technology transfer, and capacity building can be mobilized effectively to support youth-led adaptation strategies and just transition at the local and global level? And the other question is the same of the first group. So basically, we have 3 guiding questions, right? The question that the voting that I wanted to suggest here is do we want to make 2 breakout groups, or we just discuss in a one main group? So please tell us on the chat, one plenary or 2 plenary. I see 1. Consensus based. Okay, for instance, we don't see strong objections. Yeah, people are taking that one.
Yeah, I'd say we are like taking a very good debate in one group. So I guess
Okay,
it is working.
perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Chalice. Since we don't have no strong objections, we follow. It's decided. We're gonna keep on 1. All right, let's keep on 1 then, and the discussion happens. Yeah, now we have 25 minutes. So the questions are how international cooperation facilitates just transition pathways in the context of adaptation. And I would suggest one thing. So we can take 5 minutes. I can count here. You can think about the questions, and you can write your answer. I guess this is also good for our brain on the chat, and we can place on the chat. It's also easier the facilitation world. So yeah, 5 minutes for you to take a moment to think about the questions and write your propositions on the chat. Okay, so I will mark 5 minutes here, and yeah, let's go. Okay, one more minute. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from our brief 5 minutes reflection. I guess if you're finalizing your idea writing, it's okay. And yeah, if you need more time, it's okay. Please can already put on a chat about your discussion point. You can also elaborate more. The idea is to use the chat as our brainstorming space. So this facilitates also the work of the note takers on capturing your idea. So if there is anyone that wants to kickstart ice breaking the space through comments, I really wanted to also encourage those people that didn't spoken yet to participate, because this is a safe space to you to bring your ideas. So Anirudh, I know that you raise your hands, but I wanted to also take from the chat. So we have Londi, Londiwi. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name, and also Rosny to open your mic and bring us your view. So Londi, do you want to share your view?
Yes. Thank you so much, Mishake. I think I was answering just from top of my head.
So sorry. Before you speak, so sorry. If you can also tell us your answer, which the guiding questions that you want to address your answer, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. So my answer was actually more to the first one about how can international cooperation facilitate just transition pathways in the context of adaptation. And I think there's I'm going to say a very serious need to incorporate indigenous knowledge systems. So how in some communities, especially here, so I'm from South Africa, but within like the SADC region, so the Southern African region, there are a lot of communities that, if we're going to use now like climate terms, would say that it showcases like adaptation methods where it's them responding to the environment. And I think it's things that are like sort of kept in smaller communities because of like language barriers, for example. And I think for me, that kind of shows how there's a lot of knowledge in our languages and in our indigenous practices that I don't see platformed quite often. And I'm going to share an article that I read, but I'll share it on the WhatsApp group because I don't have it now because I'm just using my phone for this meeting. But it also spoke about how there was this organization that was using local communities as data collectors. So they were using people from those communities to collect data. And it really found that the data that they collected with regards to climate adaptation and mitigation was much more thorough because of the fact they spoke on like practices and indigenous knowledges that were very much kept within those communities. So I think something like that. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's go before. I know that maybe there are people that wants to comment upon Londi's answer, But before, let's take let's take a one circle of the first of the thing that was answered on the chat, and after we can do a second round of the thing with commenting upon the ready-made comments. Yeah. So after now we have Rosny, if you wanna take the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. So, when we talk about clean energy, clean technology, most of the country we don't have access. Even we buy EV, it's limited only to the capital city, and mostly it's not available in many rural part of the country, even in foreign countries. And the basic thing is that for the EV and other technology, they imply taxes, even for solar panels and stuff, which becomes expensive because of the taxes. So for any car, we have to pay 200 to 300% taxes. That is normal in most of the country. So for clean technologies, if taxes are free in many countries, then people can access like solar power, wind power, or even EV and stuff, which will become affordable for the low income people, because we must focus in every community, every income, especially for the youth. Like, we don't have much income, but if we can access the cheaper amount, like if it is accessible in affordable price, then why not? So I think the barrier might be economic reason as well. So yeah, that's my thought. Thank you so much.
Sure. Rosny, can you tell us your country and which is the guiding question that you answered?
That was the first one, and I'm from Nepal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the beginning. Yeah. So we have also like Fatan.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, in addition to what I've written there, like international cooperation have this strength to enforce a common workflow for every country to follow, which have to be robust in terms of climate variability. I mean, the climate itself is have high variability. We don't know which direction they will change, so it have to account both scenario, or in other words, we have to like list a lot of scenarios and how that can adapt to those scenarios and can be implemented in different variable and context. So it have to be also adaptive for every conditions and every background, every cultural background. Like, we have this local knowledge and how we can learn from that, because it tends to be more adaptive than our modern approach of development. So it have to combining those traditional and modern approach to create robust and adaptive workflow. Maybe that's for me.
Okay. All right, Fatan, where are you from? The country?
Indonesia.
What?
Indonesia. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay. Now we have, yeah, and guys, please, we encourage you to like bring your idea on the chat. So, you know, if there are other ideas that comes from the one that your people are talking. We have Alejandra also, like with
Yes, this is a contribution based on the Colombian experience regarding to in the requirements for the formulation and implementation of programs or projects financed by international cooperation. Some key elements to be considered in this process. One of that could be include measures that emerge or arise from local needs and opportunities, not only measures or actions that are created by professionals in the city in the central centers, but also with people in the territory, including consultative and participatory process for the definition of the actions to be included in these programs. Also, the incorporation of specific actions to materialize the cross-cutting approaches, the intergenerational, the gender, human rights, the workforce transition, with indicators to track or monitor their implementation, and also with the destination of a specific budget to implement it, because sometimes these kind of cross-cutting elements are only mentioned, but not necessarily there is a way to review or assess how was implemented, and that's all.
Right, and so I guess so this is a good practice that you're bringing.
Yes, perhaps is some best practice that the local communities with experience of the implementation of programs with local international cooperation is common to find here, not I don't know, bring solutions created by other people, but create the actions using or yes, using the needs and the opportunities that the local communities find to adaptate and improve their resilience.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. Well, we have also Anirudh with Anirudh.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, I was in a different meeting. So, yes, if I were to speak on yeah, first, I actually want to speak from the experience, not from a policy handbook, but yeah, if that is all right, I wanted to bring out a few from the tribal perspectives of Telangana, where our team has been working with young people to bring, adaptation and justice into the same breath. So I think for the first question, I honestly, international cooperation starts, meaning something when it lands at the feet of people who are already acting, right? So in our work with tribal youth, what helped wasn't just, as we keep on discussing about funding. So it's not just about funding, but it's mainly about the prospects of global ideas when they met, in prospect of local ownership. So through for example, through partnerships, let's say, inspired by global dialogues, we actually launched something called solar powered water systems in climate stressed tribal belts, which was completely supported by youth and also women who were trained through open access international toolkits and peer learning. Right, what we need from international cooperation is more flexibility, not more conditions. So if I were to say, don't make it a one size fits all model, right? We need to make something that will allow young youth leaders, like there were a few very tribal women who has who went from zero to, they've been leading a lot of these advocacies in global level too, uh, such as there is this one girl named Sunita in my village to customize a health climate health plan in her way. So those are some thoughts that I wanted to share from the first question perspective. And yeah, if it is all right, I can share the second. The So it's about challenges and opportunities. So I think the biggest challenge, uh, I feel is siloed thinking, right? Where climate plans ignore social reality, right? In Telangana and a few, other villages, there is also this town, a district called Adilabad, right? Where 58% of girls are anemic. So if we talk about resilience without food and health, we are already failing, right? So, but in fact, opportunity is enormous. So, uh, because if we make climate adaptation as a tool for, let's say, dignity, and we keep on thinking about emissions, right? We also need to activate uh, the people who have always been resilient, and who have never got the chance to be recognized. So our camps brought together climate awareness, menstrual health, and local governance. We've bridged these three different sectors with one intervention, uh, everything led by young people. So yeah, this is what I think social equity looks like in action. And yeah, so yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Just a few thoughts.
All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, and now see Londi also adding on the topics here. I guess those are for the international cooperation area. I guess it's also okay. We're gonna also open space for those, any comments or questions that you wanna further develop. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Nicholas. The floor is I open the floor for every intervention. Yeah. Let's see, maybe. Yeah, we have Londi. Nicholas, do you wanna present yours?
I mean, yeah, it's fairly self-explanatory of what I've mentioned, but it's essentially it requires, yeah, a lot of international cooperation and governing accountability mechanisms because there's a lot of finance flows cross-border, cross-continental that need to be present because especially in many instances, the locations, the regions which are most at risk in terms of climate resilience and social equity issues, these are the ones with least available resources. So there's a lot of inequity present at the current state, and this is why it's very important that the internationally the financial flows can be directed towards these regions.
Nancy, thank you so much. You have guys, like, let's open the floor for like the floor discussion. So you guys can just open the mic. Yes, not moderated.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what's happening with my mic, but I just had like a quick point on the third one on how can finance, technology transfer, and capacity building be mobilized effectively to support youth-led adaptation strategies. I think one of the, and I don't know if this may be like a South African problem, but one of the things I think we've all realized, or we're all realizing now, is sometimes like the language around funding requirements, especially, is not very it's not very clear. If I were to say, like, for example, there'd be things I'd say like, oh, it must be like a fundable project, but I'm a bankable project. And I think sometimes the language around it and the language, the way some things are structured, especially for young people, it's not really young people friendly. So I would say funding mechanisms or funding institutions, if they'd be sort of like I don't want to call it like a middleman, but just to have something in the middle that like helps prepare youth-led initiatives to be bankable and to be able to be considered for funding. I think that's something that can really help a lot of young people, especially people that aren't necessarily those that are coming from universities, but people that are equally interested in participating in the just transition. So I think simplifying the languages and maybe making some sort of like, I don't know, like a middleman, or having these platforms have a what do you call, like a step that kind of helps people make their projects bankable. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. And I mean, yeah, I wanted to comment some thing. Like, I guess this exercise that we are doing here, it's very interesting. And I see that one of the challenge of ours is to translate a relation about what can be happening on a local level, what should happen in a local level, and what the national level can do to support that local level, and what the global level can do to support the national level, and make this connection happen. This is very interesting. For example, this funding challenge is the local reality. And I guess that what the funders can do, and the funders, we involve private sector platforms, NGOs that have platforms to make that the language simplified, and national level, what national level can do to orient those. Maybe the national level people can do partnershiping, or like more consultants in a public how do you say public participation, like how do you say public dialogue, I don't know, to collect those funders and talk with them and align with them the strategy to allocate their funding strategies towards adaptation. And then international bodies can do efforts on helping national levels people to elaborate public policies to shape their funding. It's kind of anyway. It's yeah, but I just check on it. It's interesting to see how it also complex to make those relations in those three levels. Charles.
Yeah, regarding the third topic, and also what you just said about how to connect the national level and the local workers or activists, the thing that comes to my mind at first is the language barrier, and how it prevents people from actively engaging in this kind of discussions. I think that people in this group who are from marginalized communities can relate to the feeling that we must sometimes choose between getting educated or continue involving in our community, and that gets the very sad and cruel consequence that people who are actively working on their community do not have the most important tool to be active in this kind of discussions, which are mostly or exclusively held in English. You know, I am a very strong supportive that all UN bodies should have interpretation for um, at least Spanish and French, which are like the most spoken languages. Brazilian Portuguese would be awesome also because I am Brazilian, but I know that is not that popular.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah. So, yeah, happens a lot, this language barrier discussion. So I'm just aware of the time, and also I see some chats people have to leave, and I imagine that you guys have things to do. I wanted to suggest that we can start slow by slow wrapping up this thing, and before we go, we already have lots of like informations here. I really wanted to, yeah. Is there any, you know, for those people that if there's any someone that didn't spoken yet that wanna this is the last call to to you to like express yourself. Yeah. So yeah, Rosny.
Yes, I have been to different communities and different countries. So there are specific age group people who think that climate change and all the thing we are doing is not a real thing. It's just a hoax or propaganda, which I have mentioned in the challenge, the first point. So basically, they think that UN and other countries are making like climate change an issue because they want to transact money. There will be many things going on, so it's just a propaganda. So convincing those kind of people and those community is one of the biggest challenges I have faced. They have thousands of questions and they have thousands of reasons, difficult for them to make them understand, especially in the community level. And other thing, the good thing is that when they start working together, I see most of the religion, races, gender, caste, they all come together, work from the grassroots level. Yes, I like the point about the financing, which we discussed earlier. So, most of the time, especially for the youth led organizations, the funding is like next to possible. So, people don't want to invest for the youth. We have always trouble getting the fundings and stuff. Language, yes, most of the people can't understand English and stuff, and even they do understand, it's in the minimum level. So bigger words are problem for them. Even the government, ministerial people and everybody, they understand very less, so that is another problem. And most of the time, like what I seen, I'll give you one example. I'm from Nepal, and I seen, especially in the cool countries, there is problem in EV and batteries and everything. Battery drain out in the cold weather very fast, so there is no alternative to the fossil fuels in those kind of area. So that is another challenge for the transition thing. That's it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Rosny, for coming upon that. Okay, guys, but because of the time, we're gonna yeah wrap this event up. But finally, but thank you so much for all your time that you're bringing here, and I wanted to extend the thanking for the people that already left this meeting also, and also for the mainly for the presenters for taking your extra time to prepare it, and also for the people that was working in the backstage to prepare this event. So yep. So the next, what's gonna happen next? So with this, we already could create the first document, the first conversation. So what we will do is to our those ideas will be compiled and shared on a Google Doc. And also this Google Doc will be shared with the policy team. And that will be further represented by our representatives. So if the adaptation people and the just transition people could share the link of their WhatsApp group here on the chat, that would be amazing. And Flore, if you have from the just transition part, that would be amazing. Please put on the chat so we can stay tuned from each other. And those are the people that will be representing us on the third dialogue. So we have Anirudh, we have Saikat, we have Alejandra, Kareem, Zuzana, Carmen, and Gideon that will be presenting us there. And hopefully we see you back. Yeah, we have a fruitful discussion over there. And, we're taking insights from today. And also afterwards, see you on the reporting back. So that's it for today's event. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yep. Yeah, we did it. We survived. Applause for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yosuke, for organizing this meeting. It was very, very interesting. Sometimes, I don't know, I get this feeling that we get very stuck in our working groups. We get in the same loop or discussing the same thing. So it was very, very interesting for me to listen to you all and get just transition perspective. I will for sure try to read more about the topic because it is very, very interesting.
That's nice. That's nice. That's a kind word of appreciation. Like, thank you so much. Yeah. And for me, like, I wanted to also thank all the works that we are doing inside YOUNGO. I know that sometimes, I guess those type of exercise have to be done more often. And what we have to create is more like also like methodology on how we can prepare better our representatives when we have an event. So I guess this initiative is also a prototype on trying to improve our internal processes, And I guess what I saw as a conclusion on today's event is that we need maybe more future capacity building session to be able to translate the local level challenges and how disconnect to the national and how we disconnect to the global, because sometimes I guess we bring demands on the local level that maybe is not the addressable on a global level, but there are certainly a connection and how we can, I guess we need more exercise, more training session on that. Yeah. Appreciation moment. If there is any other appreciation word that you wanna